Welcome back to Runecast. It's morning here in Texas. I'm having my coffee. And today we're going to talk, this will be a second one in a series of book reviews. Today we're going to talk about These Leaves of Yggdrasil by Freya. This is one of my most favorite books. I mentioned it in the other video. And this is my second copy of this book. I actually wore out my first copy. I come to it again and again, and I have some places marked in this book to kind of go over with you. I won't make this video too long, but I definitely want to talk about Rune books on this channel. I definitely want to talk about them because they were a very important part of my Rune journey. Even to this day, I am the only person that I really know personally that works with runes. You that are watching this may be experienced runesters, maybe just starting your quest, but I would love to get to know some of you in the comments below, so please feel free to ask questions, share knowledge with me as I share with you. It's the best way to learn. Like I said, I was always the only person I knew that worked with the runes. I came across a few other people in my journey. One person who inspired me and taught me how to use the staves or tines or lots as they're called sometimes, which is my favorite method of divination now. But other than that, with the exception of maybe a few witches like Uma from San Francisco's Tools of Magic, who was kind of a mentor to me. She ran a magic shop there in the early 90s. She was a mentor to me, but she wasn't primarily a rune practitioner as I was becoming. So throughout my journey, the only thing I had were these books and these authors like Freya, who became de facto friends and mentors to me throughout my journey learning the runes. So I encourage you to, discover books, share books with me. What are your favorite books? As I start to share some of my favorites. This is certainly one of my most favorite books. I referred to it for decades now, again and again, so much so that I'm on my second copy. The first one just wore out. But yes, as I drink some coffee and talk about Leaves of Yggdrasil, we will get to know the rune books. So, Freya's book is really great. If you're a beginning learner, I suggested another book by Lisa Pichel. That one is great for beginners, but when you get into the intermediate or more advanced stage of rune study, you're going to look for deeper books, and this one is one of the best. She explains in this book all the basics, like she'll go over the basics. So if you're a beginner and you want to dive into this, certainly can. I was more of an intermediary practitioner when I came across this book, and I loved it. I was starving for it because all I had were the smaller books like the Ralph Blum book and maybe one or two others. But I believe it was Uma at Tools of Magic who recommended this one and ordered it for me. And when it came in, I was so excited. It's by a female author, and it was something that I've always been drawn to, the female authors, because like I was saying in the last video, it was primarily, probably, most likely the women who carried most of these traditions down through the Christian suppression, 1,000 years, from mother to daughter, and so on and so forth. So they had the recipes, they knew the herbs, they knew the stories, they knew how the stories were related to the herbs, and they knew the runes. As Freya explains, she grew up in Holland She's Dutch, and anyways, so she's awesome, and she's still practicing today. And there are some videos, some YouTubes out there with her in it, and I cherish them. It's great to see her still practicing. Here's her layout of the 9 worlds. Like I said, this book is great. It goes into detail with all 24 runes. Here's her explanation of each rune. She also gives you her personal insight, because runes are something that you have to kind of ingest. You take them in, they work in you, and they have their own language with you that is uniquely yours, and yours with the runes. So as you learn the runes, you get to know, the different meanings, like Notha's. You'll come to understand Freya's relationship with Notha's and every rune in here. But as you learn the runes, you'll have your own relationship. It'll be a little bit the same. It'll be a little bit different. It'll be a little bit uniquely yours. So that's one of the amazing things about the runes. They're very, how can I say this? You develop a relationship with them. So as I did, I developed my white cloth 9-world rune stave divination based on this layout of the 9 worlds that she has in her book. This is where I derived the placement for the 9 worlds. They are placed in different ways, in different perspectives sometimes. But this is the one that resonated with me in this book. She also goes through divination, quite a good part on divination, superconscious, active future. I also incorporated elements of this into my system of rune casting. Like I said, this was very foundational for me. A few other books played an important role, but this is probably one of the 3 pillars that I built my own personal method of reading on. So she goes over divination, which is awesome, magic, how to work your will. She talks about psychological profile readings, which runes mean in a reading of that nature. Just touches on a lot of stuff and let me take it from there, which was really awesome. It's an awesome thing about this book. She talks a little bit about the old ways and the old rituals. She talks about the 8 celebrations, the 8-fold wheel here. So that's pretty awesome. What else does she talk about? She mentions so much in here that, like I said, I find myself going back to it again and again. She talks about the gods, and where this knowledge comes from in the literature, the Eddas and the sagas. Which is kind of dizzying at first, the different gods. But then more importantly, and this is what really opened a whole new world into the runes for me, she talked about the female aspects, which is something that I was not aware of, how important it was. And in this passage, she said, the modern day revival of the northern religious tradition has been largely the work of men. Perhaps this is due to the exaggeratedly masculine image of the elder faith inherited from the Viking Age. So she talks about how we're in a patriarchal age right now, and how the runes were handed down to us through, in literature form anyway, through men. But like I said earlier, the underlying traditions and the religions and a lot of the knowledge was passed from mother to daughter. And so she talks about the goddesses here, which is a really important part of the book to me. In addition to the goddesses, there are female beings in the northern system, such as the Disir, the Valkyries, and the Norns. She talks about the different goddesses. And so this was really important to me, very eye-opening. Like I said in the other video, I think I was doing the video for Mistletoe and the rune Sig. The first time I ever saw the name of the sun goddess was in her book. So it was very, very eye-opening to me. One little passage I wanted to share with you is about Freya. So, in the Prose Edda, Odin, just as high, says the goddesses are no less sacred and no less powerful. First and foremost is the god of the goddesses is Frigga, Odin's consort. Frigga is very powerful, but renowned for her silence. She has total knowledge of the fates of all men, including that of her own son Baldur. However, she does not make prophecy. Odin had to use other means, such as through his ordeal on Yggdrasil and his sacrifice to Mimir, to gain the same knowledge. So it's very eye-opening to me. Of course, I had read that, but when you're reading the Eddas, it's kind of your mind is going. But for her to bring that point back, I had to go back and read that passage, and it's very important what she's saying here, that in the original part of the tradition, the women were equal, and even more important at times, but at least equally as important. And so the goddesses had a prominence. And from my understanding and my thought, my hypothesis, my theory, is that they were the original primary pantheon. But then over thousands of years, when the patriarchal shift took place, they began to fade. But I love that in the Eddas, they try to point out that they are just as powerful or just as high. So anyway, that's my basic overview of Freya's Leaves of Yggdrasil. If you can find a copy, get a copy. Even if you're a beginner, I would recommend it. It's something that you'll go to again and again. You may work with a thinner book that's maybe more accessible at first, but get a copy of this if you can, and you will be glad you did. Okay, that's my video on Leaves of Yggdrasil. I will be doing more. Please share your thoughts below. Most of all, like I said, I was hoping that this would start a dialogue between fellow runesters from wherever you are. Like I said, I always was the only runester I knew, but now that I've seen on YouTube, I've seen there's others out there. So please share your thoughts, ask questions, and let's share our knowledge. Okay, thanks. See you on the next video.